see the Pentagon, it represents someone who worked at the Pentagon. Turn the other way around, you look up and see the sky, it represents somebody on the airplane. Wow. The others were 3 years old, the old was just 7 people, and they're in age order across the park. And then there's
so wear your coat.
It's cold in here.
Turn the heat up. They didn't turn it up till I got here, so probably won't get warm until we leave.
Yeah.
3 inches high. It was that design was one of the 1100s.
My car went 65 for temperature.
My brother was the house.
Me too.
I went to the doctor's and she said if I could get a shot, they want to say I was able to grow and you're getting this guy with the shot. And I said, okay.
You guys weren't on their uniform. The top of Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, around town, the White House, Jefferson Memorial, and Brooklyn Island, the elevator was up to 500 feet, there's another 51 feet, you don't have access to it, and 500 feet of the ground the city. This is the main flag of the World War II Memorial. The side over here, the pavilion over here, the Pacific side, that are name stones around here for the country involved in the war. You get Hard Rock Cafe in downtown DC, a half block from Ford's Theater, and across the street you got Pearson House where Lincoln passed away, and then
Very crazy story.
And that's something.
like your car was 5 miles out.
Did you see 2 bullets that came?
You didn't see that at all.
You know, they're talking about, they said that the statistics against that is so horrific.
2 bullets. I heard about that. Heard about a lady that got these kills in the war, and her bullet came through her door here in the house. But you can't see what this media is printed on and all this. Then we go to the song is going to take everybody's picture.
Yeah, go ahead and start playing. Go ahead and do the prelude.
And there is a walkway in the flight path of the plane.
maybe we should start every Sunday like that? Start with a prelude instead of talking first? What do you think? That gives people when they're talking in the pews, that they know that church is starting rather than having to flag them down. So we may do that. All right, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this brisk fall day. Do we have any announcements? I've got a couple for Margaret. I don't know how many of you are on Margaret's email connection thing. She is really attached. I mean, I assume you may have seen on the news, Channel 7 or Channel 2, Legacy Pancake House burned down in Dayton. Margaret goes there every week. Every week. And I said, what's your favorite food? And let's see, she likes the omelet in the morning. She likes there's a sandwich, the Reuben sandwich she has at noon, and then she likes the blueberry and the blackberry pie. So she gave me quite a list. But she also enlarged on that a little bit. It's not the food particularly. I mean, she likes the food, but the people there, she said, were the nicest people. The waitresses would sit down and talk to you in your booth. And it was just like a family get together every week, and there was quite a crowd because they even had a memorial service the night of the fire, the night after the fire, when a lot of the customers who went there all the time went and had a little memorial service that night. And nobody knows right now whether the owner's going to rebuild or not. When they asked her, she said she didn't know whether she was going to rebuild. So it sounded like that was quite a community. And they interviewed the staff, and they were all friends with each other and friends with their customers. So what do we talk about all the time in church? Building a community. Yep. Your community doesn't have to be church. It can be a restaurant. And in the old days, every little town had a little diner. And that's where the old farmers, when they retired, would hang out. Maybe it was at the gas station, had a little place to eat. Community will find itself, it will make itself if you give it a chance. And we want to encourage that. So,
Where exactly was the one that burned?
I don't really know where it was. Does anybody know where the Legacy Diner is?
North Dixie.
I've never seen it.
North Dixie Drive.
North Dixie?
Yeah.
And then she also talked about, there's another one that used to be where the Ponderosa was, down by Kiwi or someplace.
Golden Nugget.
Yeah, the Golden Nugget.
Golden Nugget.
And that's supposed to be opening up again, but they don't know if it's going to be the Golden Nugget name.
It's sold. It's sold.
Yes.
They don't want it there.
So they don't exactly know what's going on there. So places to eat. I read some kind of review. If you, you have to be a member of the REMC, Dark County REMC. They have a magazine that comes out. Had a thing about the Golden Lamb up north somewhere. That's famous. That's been in existence for over 100.
In Lebanon, isn't it?
Lebanon, yeah. I think over 150 years. I mean, it was there in the 1800s. There was a restaurant there.
Several presidents eaten there.
Yes, several presidents have eaten there. So that's pretty famous, and they've got a community created. So community is something that will kind of find its own way if it can. So anyway, Margaret wanted me to announce that about the Legacy Restaurant. And also, don't forget, Margaret's at Sinclair College, the recital or the music program is today at Sinclair. Mike had the information on that written down because I couldn't find it. But I'm sure if you're interested in going and want to find, I think it's at 2 o'clock at Blair. I think it's the Blair Auditorium. Yeah. It's pretty easy to find at Sinclair. So if anybody has the time or the ability to get down and do that, I know Margaret really enjoys that. And we're really happy that group can get back together after the COVID thing.
Well,
all right.
What was the date of going to El Dorado for Derek's 25th celebration?
Yes, November 5th.
November 5th.
Crystal will be here next Sunday.
Okay.
And she'll have a presentation, and she always is really interesting to listen to. And then I think the Sunday after that will be Derek's. So we will all meet at El Dorado the 5th, and there'll be cake and ice cream afterwards. And we don't have to bring our own cake or bring our own ice cream. So, all right, our chalice lighting. God runs late for church. Oh, also today we're doing. This is part of, I've talked to you about this before, and it's like constantly a long-running thing with me, trying to figure out what the heck is going on in the world. So today, one aspect of that is we're talking about the difference between intelligence and wisdom. So there's a brain. And actually, I'll give you a quote to start with. If you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. We'll be talking about the difference between intelligence or being smart and being wise. Today, God is running late, trying to find their seat, scanning the room for someone they know or someone they don't. God's feeling evangelical, but not in a judgy way, mysterious, but not manipulative. God can't stop thinking about the James Webb Telescope and the possibility that time is not linear, which God might have guessed. From the never-ending urgency of some upcoming election and the likelihood that sometime next week Halloween candy will show up on the doorstep. God is tired of grief and white supremacy and the warming of the oceans. Not to mention they usually come to the later service and it's hot. Why hasn't the climate-friendly air conditioning been installed yet? This was part of the resources you get from the Unitarian Universalist, which I thought was pretty close to what we wanted for today. God wonders, and of course, we're all alike. No kidding. God, can't you do something about that? But God's hearing aid batteries ran out, and they haven't had time to order more. Or that's what they say when asked, and can hear the question. But really, that last emergency room visit maxed their credit cards, and their partner's been working DoorDash for some extra cash. But it's really just not enough. And really, God just wants to be present. Stop worrying about everything. Sing, breathe, laugh. We've got you, God, we say. We'll settle in and we'll be present and we'll sing. We'll tell stories and breathe deep. We'll remember ourselves and offer whole galaxies of gratitude for all this beauty, for the still blooming salvia, the full apple trees, zucchini bread, and the U.S. women's soccer team, for protest letters and entire villages of people saying, "You are safe here, God. Your creation is not done yet. Creating you, come, let us worship together." The Unitarian Universalist website has a whole panoply of information that they provide. This is all new. They've completely changed it up, which is kind of interesting. There was a lot of stuff that I hadn't gotten to from the old list, which has disappeared, but there's a tremendous amount of new stuff. And as you can tell, this one is topical. This was written not too long ago, talking about the soccer team and the things that are going on. It was written by Reverend Gretchen Haley, who wrote this call to worship for a service about process theology. And I've asked my wife what process theology is, and I still don't understand it, so I'm not going to try to explain it to you. Invite you to change words and phrases to fit the time of year, to fit your community. Whatever annoying thing is on your folks' minds, she says. So, we'll be getting more information from the new resources. And I'm eager to see what that will provide. Okay, our opening hymn is number 25.
Hey
earth, the sky, and the sea. All right, our affirmation also is a new one. The litany of oops and ouch. I receive your ouch with openness and curiosity. I receive your oops with acceptance and empathy. I offer my ouch with hope and trust. I offer my oops with humility and courage. I release my ouch with immeasurable faith. I release my oops with purpose. I release your ouch with promise. I release your oops with my eyes and heart open. Innovative. Some might find that to their taste and some may not, but I enjoy the kind of the new twist on some of these things, and that's one of the things I enjoy about the Unitarian Universalists, is they're not afraid to take a new path to see where it leads. If we have objections or people don't like it, let me know and we'll go a different direction. Joys and concerns. We'll start with Israel. Again, yes, Luke.
Well, if you have, keeping your thoughts and prayers, Lisa's getting her knee done tomorrow at 12, so she'll be gimping for a while, and I'll be a slave, I guess.
And where is she at?
Servant, I guess.
Well, that's a servant of love.
Say that, I'm sorry.
Servant of love.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yes. And where is she having surgery?
Let's see, it's here in, let's say in the hospital. It's just a little bit north of here.
So north of Dark County, up in.
No, it's actually in Dark County.
Oh, it's in Dark. Wayne. Oh, okay.
Wait a minute. Jeez, I should know this. I know where it is. It's off of 49.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
That's Denise is having surgery, and Wayne is a good place. That's where I had mine. Actually, Wayne is not really. A lot of the surgeons come from Reed, come from bigger hospitals, and there's a lot of hospital conglomeration thing going on now. They get bigger, and it's like everything else. They get bigger and bigger, and the big ones buy up the small ones. So I guess there's not much we can do about that. So we got Israel, we got Denise. There are still disasters going on all over the place. You can't even keep up with them anymore. We still have the crossings at the border. You don't hear about that much anymore. Ukraine has been pushed out of the news. They are still fighting to the death in Ukraine. I read I think it was 30 or 40% of the agricultural land is contaminated with landmines and leftover military munitions, so it can't be farmed. I think I mentioned that last week. Even with that loss of land, their production of the land they could farm was within, 20 or 30% of what they normally produce. And that is grain that goes to feed Africa, it goes to feed the Mediterranean. It's an interconnected world. Everybody, this idea of we can stand by ourselves and don't need anybody else is hooey. I mean, the whole world is connected back and forth to each other. And we need to depend on each other and we need to support each other. And we'll be talking about that a little bit as far as smarts and intelligence goes.
I'm glad you mentioned Ukraine because they're not saying much about it.
It's been pushed out of the news. 2 American hostages have been released from Israel. We rejoice in that. And we're having trouble with the more conservative states are trying to control what professors and what colleges can say and can do. So there's an actual clash between Palestinian supporters who support the Palestinian people, who have been rightfully or wrongly abused by the Israelis. The settlers take advantage of the Palestinians, take their houses, take their land, tear up their olive groves, tear up their olive trees. But that is no excuse whatsoever for the slaughter that the Hamas, the Palestinian aggression, the Palestinian revolt, the Palestinian rebels performed on the Israelis. Women, children, babies, infants tortured, burned. The inhumanity is just incredible. And I was reading an article, kind of on a sidelight. there's a new drug out that is like amphetamine, but it's an oral pill that you take, and it's like a side shoot off of amphetamine. And all of these Palestinian terrorists were loaded up with these pills. They blank out your conscience. They make it so you don't have any feelings. You don't feel remorse. You don't feel fear. You don't feel regret. And they sent these men off with a mission and told them what to do, and then gave them these pills to smother their humanity. Can you imagine being able to shoot a little baby in its crib, or shoot old women, or shoot little kids? This is not war, this is pure terrorism. And yet, the Palestinian population is suffering. There were over 1,300 Israelis killed in this attack, but there's already been almost 3,000 Palestinians killed, mostly women and children. And they interview the women and children on each side, and each side decries the savagery of the other side. But it's not the people, it's not the women and children that are killing people. It's the people, the men who control the Israeli army, and the men who control the rebel army of Hamas. And I do not know what the answer is there. You can't punish the whole population for the crimes of a few. And that's what our president tried to tell the Israelis. If you go in and demolish the entire section of the West Bank, that is going to create a worse problem than we already have. So, and I guess, talking about government, we need to light a candle for the Congress, primarily the legislature, which is now going on 2 weeks with no Speaker of the House. No business can be done without a Speaker. What can you, yes?
Well, the good side of that is Jimmy Twiddledork Jordan, I had another name for him, sorry, I shouldn't say that, this is not good. He did not get elected to that position.
No, that was good.
You should get a data. Say what?
He certainly tried over and over and over.
Yeah, he tried.
He's a trouble.
And that is an interesting sign of the Republican Party is so under the thumb of the left or the right wing of that party. The radicals in that party are controlling the party. And whenever they had an open vote, he lost by 10 or 15 or 20 votes. When they had a secret vote, he lost by 100 votes. But you saw on the news, people called up these Republicans that openly voted against him and threatened their lives, threatened their wives, threatened their kids. And some of them finally rebelled against that and said, that's not the American way. That's not the Republican way or the Democratic way. That's not a normal way to behave. We still don't have a way out, though. That's the problem. The party is still under that type of control. And that's what I referred to when I said a lot of the colleges in the South are talking about anti-woke. In other words, you can't talk about woke. In Arkansas, with the new female governor, you can't say certain phrases. It's not allowed to say that in any state publication or any state news conference. Certain places are outlawed, and they talk about the cancel culture, and they're the prime example. So we're getting way off the topic here. So anything else? Do we have any personal other than Denise? All right. We'll light a candle for those thoughts and prayers that can't be voiced, maybe that aren't even aware that would need to be voiced. Problems abound. I guess I'll have light a little candle for the 2 homeless girls that have finally moved out of my place and are infesting somebody else's place. I'm so happy about that. But they are not making any progress as far as I can tell. All they've done is transferred their problems to somebody else. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit too. All right, let's see if I played this before and it worked, so we'll see if it does this time.
Humans are proud of a lot of things, from particle accelerators to poetry to Pokemon. All of them made possible because of something humans value extremely highly: intelligence. We think of intelligence as a trait, like height or strength, but when we try to define it, things get fuzzy. In a nutshell, intelligence is a mechanism to solve problems, especially the problem of staying alive, which involves finding food and shelter, fighting sexual competitors, or fleeing from predators. Intelligence is not a single thing. It includes the ability to gather knowledge, to learn, be creative, form strategies, or engage in critical thinking. It manifests itself in a huge variety of behaviors, from hardwired or instinct-like reactions to different degrees of learning to some sort of awareness. But not all scientists agree where it begins or what even should count as intelligence. To make this even more complicated, intelligence is also connected to consciousness, since awareness is helpful for problem solving. But we're exploring consciousness in other videos, so today we'll leave it aside. Okay, intelligence isn't exactly clear-cut, so maybe we can think of it as more like a flexible set of skills, a toolbox. Basic tools. The most basic tools in the intelligence toolbox are the ability to gather information, to save it, and to use it to learn. Information about the world is gathered through senses such as vision, sound, smell, touch, or taste, and helps us navigate and react to the external world appropriately. But living things also need to keep track of the state of their own bodies, monitoring things like hunger and fatigue. Information is the basis of action for all living things, and without it, you're at the mercy of your surroundings, unable to react appropriately or flexibly. Information is much more powerful if we can keep and save it. So the second tool is memory. Memory is the ability to save and recall information so a living being doesn't have to start from scratch every time it perceives something relevant. Memories can be about events, places, and associations, but also behaviors like hunting or foraging methods. Some of these, like flying, have to be repeated over and over until they're mastered. This is what we call learning, the process of putting together a sequence of thoughts or actions. Basically a string of repeatable behaviors that can be varied and adapted. These three tools enable seemingly stupid creatures to act in surprisingly intelligent ways. The acellular slime mold, which is basically just a single huge slimy cell, shows behavior similar to an animal with a simple brain. When put in a maze with food at one end, the slime mold explores its surroundings and marks its path with slime trails, sort of smearing memories on the ground. As it continues exploring, it avoids the marked pathways and finds its way to the food. Instead of blindly getting stuck in dead ends, the slime mold adapts its behavior to save time and effort. This behavior is hardwired, and scientists can't agree if that's intelligent, although it does give the slime mold a certain advantage. Bees are an example of more adaptive smart behavior. Scientists trained bumblebees to move a colored ball into a goalpost for a sugar reward. Not only were the bees very skillful at this behavior, which isn't natural to them, they got more efficient over time. When several balls were available, bees chose the ball that lay closest to the goal, even if it was a different color than the ball they were trained with. For more challenging problems, we need even more flexibility. Fancier tools. Building on the basic tools, more complex animals have a wider range of problems they can solve. They can memorize all kinds of associations, connections, and mechanical tricks. We'll call this tool the Library of Knowledge. Take raccoons. Their favorite kind of food is human food. Their approach to getting hold of such treats depends upon an assortment of theoretical and practical skills that makes them master burglars, able to open windows or pick locks. In a study, raccoons were given boxes secured with different kinds of locks, like latches, bolts, plugs, or push bars. They needed less than 10 attempts to figure out how to open each box, even when different locks were put together into increasingly difficult combinations that had to be solved in the right order and with different amounts of strength. A year later, the raccoons still remembered how to open the boxes and were as fast as when they had first solved the puzzle. Beyond our library of associations and skills, the most impressive tool in our box is creativity, a sort of mental dice tape. Being creative means producing something new and valuable from apparently unrelated things. In the context of intelligence, this means making new and unusual connections, pairing input with memories and skills to come up with a unique solution to a problem. In another raccoon study, researchers showed the animals that by dropping pebbles into a water tank, they could raise the water level enough to reach a marshmallow floating at the top. One raccoon came up with a much better solution. It tipped the tub over. Another facet of creativity is applying a new resource to a task, physical tools. Like primates that use sticks to fish for termites in trees, or some octopuses which assemble collected coconut shells around themselves as a sort of portable armor to hide from enemies. Collecting materials for later use is connected to an even more advanced dimension of problem solving, planning. Planning means considering the activities required for a desired goal and putting them together in a plan. When unforeseen circumstances and new possibilities present themselves, they need to be assessed according to whether they match the plan or not. An example of this intelligent behavior is hoarding food to eat it later. This is an instinctive behavior in squirrels. But even though hiding food comes instinctively to them, they still need to use advanced thinking skills to make the best decisions. Squirrels examine every nut and weigh the time and effort it would take to hide it against the benefits they would get from each one. Damaged or low-fat nuts are eaten right away, while nuts that still need to ripen go on the stockpile. Squirrels also pretend to bury nuts when they feel watched. These empty caches distract rivals from their real treasure. This is pretty advanced strategizing because to make a plan to distract someone else, you first have to be aware that there are others like you that want the same things. The more complex the problem, the more tools are needed in combination to solve it. So the more tools there are, the more flexibility a being has to solve the challenges life throws at them. But even for complex problems, each animal's individual situation is what counts. Squirrels are omnivores that defend their territories fiercely. For them, it makes sense to remember where there's food in different locations and trick their enemies to improve their chances of survival. Sheep don't have any such refined tricks up their sleeve, but they don't need to. They are grazers and live in flocks. The skills relevant to them are social. They recognize and remember many different sheep and even humans for years, a completely different skill. Evolving and retaining a complex set of mental abilities they might never use would be a waste of resources for them. Humans went the opposite way and invested in an unusually diverse intelligence toolkit. While this was helpful, by accident we added another set of tools on top: culture. No single person could ever build a space rocket or particle accelerator. But thanks to our ability to work together and to share knowledge across generations, we can overcome challenges beyond any single individual's ability. This allowed us to shape the planet to our liking. We also created new problems in the process: Sudoku, tax forms, string theory, but also rapid climate change and antibiotic resistance. To solve these, we'll need to look past short-term survival and think about the distant future. We have the toolbox. We just need to use it. Speaking of tools for learning, we've heard from many teachers that are using our infographic posters in class. So we asked what would help them the most and made an education edition for teachers, students, and everyone else. They're slightly larger posters about various things that will expand over time.
That's a little ad at the end, but that's all right. Pretty incredible. Some of those things, I've talked to you before about intelligence, about the crows that put the pebbles in the water to get a drink out of it to raise the level of water. But the bumblebees trained to get a drop of sugar water by pushing a little ball into a target. And then taking the closest ball, even if it's a different color. Bumblebees with a brain the size of a pinhead. It's just amazing. So that's what we're going to talk about is intelligence. And what's the difference between intelligence and wisdom? Anybody want to offer a thumbnail sketch? I'll give you one example. Intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't put tomatoes in a fruit salad. No, you shouldn't. You should not put a tomato in a fruit salad. But tomatoes are a fruit. So that's kind of where we end up with what is intelligence. Intelligence, as they went through, that's the ability to think abstractly, to reason, to learn, to solve problems. I look at intelligence, and as examples they were giving here, solving problems is probably the primary thing. All of us know people who are not even smart enough to solve problems that they face, on a daily basis. They do the same thing over and over again, and it fails, and then they do it again, and it fails, and they do it again, and it fails. So the basic intelligence is to see a problem, figure out a way to get around it, and get past it. They apply the knowledge and the skills that you have, the strategies. Intelligence is more complex than common sense and can be used to create new ideas or to solve new problems. It's the ability to think critically. And we've talked about this a bunch. Critical thinking is a skill we should teach, and critical thinking is a skill that is being taught less and less. And there is a suspicion out there that it's intentionally being taught less. People are being taught to follow by rote what the answers are. They give you the answers, they tell you to memorize the answers, and they discourage you from coming up with your own answers. That is a hallmark of a totalitarian regime, or a totalitarian government, or a totalitarian-based theory of government. They do not want you to think critically. They don't want you to analyze the information in the data. They try to control the data and the information available so you can't make your own analysis. Intelligence is also the ability to adapt to a changing environment and to cope with various situations, and that's kind of where we run into trouble. Common sense is the knowledge and understanding of everyday life. We often talk about common sense as people lacking in common sense, and sometimes we equate that with people lacking intelligence. I'm not sure, I still haven't found the connection between common sense and intelligence, because you don't have to be very smart to have common sense. And some of the most intelligent people that we see don't seem to have any common sense. So I'm not sure they're actually connected together. Common sense is the knowledge and understanding of everyday life. It's the ability to make sound judgments and decisions based on prior experience, common sense, and intuition. Now we're getting into the area of what wisdom is. Some people say common sense is just the short term for the more intellectual term of wisdom. It's the ability to think logically, assess situations, and make responsible choices. Common sense is important for navigating through life and making the right decisions. It's also helpful for dealing with practical problems and for making informed decisions. Common sense is also kind of a cultural thing. It's kind of something you either inherit or you learn from your surroundings, either the kids that you grow up with or your family. Some families seem to be full of common sense and how to solve problems, and some families seem to be terribly bereft of it. They make the same mistakes over and over. They have the same failings, the same lacking over and over, and the kids seem to inherit that. And I don't know whether it's inherited or whether it's learned, but we all know families that have a tradition from generation after generation for not really succeeding in life. Critical thinking means overcoming all kinds of the cognitive biases. For instance, hindsight bias or confirmation bias. The critical thinking is the thing where you look at something and are willing to take in new information. And this is where we start getting into the political aspect, what we look at as what's happening with our government today, what's happening with a portion of the population. Approximately 40% of the population supports not doing anything new. And we'll get into a kind of an understanding, a rationale for that. It's called, TMT. And I don't know who comes up with all these things. It's terror management theory. That's how we're going to apply common sense and wisdom to the political scene or the daily scene that we're seeing now. TMT involves emotion, and emotion overrules intellect in many, many cases. That is, to me, one of the hallmarks of wisdom, is when you can control your emotions, and you can see through your emotions, and you can go beyond your emotions by thinking through the process, using critical thinking, deciding what is the right course of action, not the course of action that your emotions tell you to take, which is what President Biden has counseled the Israelis. Their emotional response to the Palestinians is to bomb the crap out of the West Bank and killing many innocent civilians in the process. And I've heard some on the Israeli more fundamentalist side saying they should just eliminate the whole area and bomb the whole thing into nothing. And all that does is create another problem. That is emotion overruling intellect, emotion overruling your conscience, that emotion of revenge and hate and anger and fear overruling what your mind and your heart tells you is the right thing to do. And unfortunately, in the Middle East, not unfortunately, but obviously, a lot of that is driven by religion, the Jewish religion of the Israelis and the Muslim religion of the Palestinians. And that is a hallmark of religion. Hope overrules experience. Think about that. In religion, hope overrules experience. Your experience in life tells you that there is no afterlife. It tells you there is no miracle that happens, but hope and belief and faith and emotion tells you that there is. The stronger emotion takes the more prominent place emotion has in your life, and this is where you can see the evangelical worshipers who raise their hand and speak in tongues. They are filled with emotion. Those people who have emotion close to the surface are the more often more fanatical religious believers. And that takes, it doesn't matter what your religion is, they are the ones who are willing to perform any kind of heinous act in the name of their religion. What God would tell you to kill innocent women and children? What God would tell you to blow up innocent women and children? That's a question. Your intellect says, why would God do that? The emotion says, I will do what God tells me to do. And if you look at the Bible, we've gone through and seen examples in the Bible. Isaac, when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, that was a belief that God told him to do that. It was only in the writers of the Bible or the determination of what happened in that story that he was spared. Abraham was more than willing to go ahead and complete that act that he thought God wanted him to do. That is a rule of emotion over intellect, in my understanding. Okay, what we get into then is this terror management theory. I don't know who comes up with these names. This was somebody, and this is only like 10 or 20 years ago. Some doctorate of something in some college came up with this. But the idea that he's trying to understand, trying to share with us, I think makes sense. Anger stems from a feeling of threat and some form of inner pain, such as fear, anxiety, shame, hopelessness, and powerlessness. Fear, anxiety, shame, hopelessness, and powerlessness. Who does that describe in your mind's eye? When you think of those terms, what people do you think of that would fit that term? It is understandable that we might have some degree of irritation aroused by that driver who abruptly cuts us off. Similarly, we may feel our financial security is threatened by our partner's lack of frugality, and certainly we may be disappointed with ourselves when we fail to achieve our goals. But the inability to be realistic in our expectations makes all the difference between having feelings such as disappointment and sadness and experiencing intense anger. We all have feelings of frustration, of disappointment, of failure, but only a certain percentage of the population takes those feelings and magnifies them into something that will cause them to pull out a gun and shoot somebody for something like being cut off in traffic, or when somebody says that they're playing in your yard and you don't want them in your yard, and you take out a gun and shoot them, or they come knock on your door and you shoot them through the door, or the guy who was trying to protect the deer crossing the road that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, and a driver drives by, rolls down his window and shoots him dead. And for what reason? The guy was standing in the middle of the road telling people to slow down. And there are more and more guns, and there are more and more people who have a gun, and there are more and more people who don't have the intellectual capacity, the emotional control to use a gun. All right, anger and feelings that others are taking what is rightfully ours, anger that others have what we deserve. Another aspect that you will see in a certain portion of the population. We are losing, and that's what they talk about with white supremacy. We are losing our place as the rulers, quote unquote, of the universe. Before, if you were a white American male, Protestant male, the world was your oyster. It is becoming more and more as the world progresses toward fairness and saying everybody ought to have an opportunity. And these people will tell you that there is no more racism. Racism is dead in the United States because we elected a black president. Any observation, any awareness of what's going on will tell you that's not true. Racism is not dead. It still is happening every day. And anger is one of their responses. These passions and emotions are the elephant of the mind. The elephant of the mind, a massive, powerful entity that is difficult to steer. The intellect is like the rider on the elephant trying to control it. Critically, these two are socially situated such that there's more to the scenario than just a rider on the elephant. The intellect is trying to control that tremendous beast of power, that the passions and the emotions that drive people to do things that sometimes they should not do. And at other times, it's the passion and the emotion stimulates people to do what they should do. People who are stimulated and emotionally worried about the condition of the world, the global warming, the racism, they are emotionally stimulated to take part in protest, to write their congressman, to vote. Emotion is not a bad thing. It's the way it is controlled. It's the way the intellect controls it or doesn't control it that counts. So, terror management theory. That is that people need to insulate themselves from their deep fear of living an insignificant life destined to be erased by death. It is to assure themselves that they are part of an important group. This often results in displays of prejudice based on the belief that the group with which one identifies is superior to others. How many times have we seen that? People confirm their self-importance, at least to themselves, by the group they identify with. And they identify to the 100th degree. There is nothing that will shake their identity, nothing that will shake their loyalty. Your leader can be indicted 94 times for criminal indictments in 4 different jurisdictions, and your loyalty is unshaken. Your leader can say, I will shoot somebody on 5th Avenue and not lose a supporter. We were shocked to hear that, but it turned out to be true. It turned out to be absolutely true. This kind of loyalty is blind emotion, uncontrolled by intellect. And yet these people have common sense. They are able to solve problems in their lives. And yet what describes or what's the understanding of how they can believe like this? That's what this terror management theory, which doesn't seem to be a very descriptive term for me, doesn't describe what is actually going on here. Terror is in there, and there is a certain sense of management, but management implies that it's an obvious intellectual control of something. These people are not intellectually in control. They are reacting on an emotional basis. And everything they do is based on an emotional basis. So, smart versus wise. Ooh, we may have to put this off till later. I was going to go into, as you know, I've tried to figure this thing out about what's going on between smart versus wise. Smart people, and I'm going back to my 2 little guests that I had for a while. They think in the short term. They think today is the answer. If I can get through today, everything is fine. They are smart, they are adaptive, they can make any problem into a solution, but it's always a short-term solution. They do not have the ability, or I have not seen the ability, to think long-term. They don't have a driver's license. They lost their driver's license for an infraction. I'll help you get a driver's license, then I'll help you get a car, then you can get a job. All these things pile one on top of another. You can't get a job until you have a car. You can't get a car until you have a driver's license. Although about half the people I work with don't have a driver's license and they still drive. Which I made a mistake and loaned one of them my truck until my friend said, you know, he doesn't have a license. So I had to go get the truck back because you can't borrow my truck if you don't have a driver's license. But he could get a driver's license, he just doesn't bother because it was revoked like some years ago. What is the thinking that goes on with these people? That is also part of a criminal archetype. You don't seem to think the laws of the world apply to you. They see something, a tool or whatever, a pot and pan that I've got or something in my house when they go through my house, they just pick it up and take it. And then I'm over at the apartment that I'm loaning them and letting them stay in, and there's my cat scratching post that I have in my apartment or have in my little cottage. How did it get over here? Well, one of those girls must have picked it up and brought it over for their cat. Did they ask me? I'd have more than willing to let them have it, but they didn't ask, they just took it. Numerous things like that. I can't even go through the whole list. Toilet paper. They go through my closet and take out 5 or 6 rolls of toilet paper. If you need toilet paper, I'll give you toilet paper. What happened to doing people, you know how we act as normal people? We think it's normal. You do me a favor, I do you a favor. There's no, you do me a favor, and then you do me another favor, and then you do me another favor, and what, I don't owe you anything. I don't understand what the lack of concept is on that. So, wisdom, delayed gratification, thinking long-term, consequences of my actions. The only thing I can say in a positive end is, well, let's start with one. Evolution says there's different development in people's personality, and this is like the whole worldwide civilization. It looks like half the people are positive, not afraid to take a chance, not afraid to think about what the future is, not afraid to try and trust their intellect and do the actions based on the future. Global warming is created by people's man-made release of carbon dioxide, so we're going to cut down our carbon dioxide. We're going to have solar, we're going to have wind, we're going to quit burning oil, we'll stop global warming. We are trusting the future to our intellect. The other half of evolution says, I'm afraid of change, nothing can change. We've had oil for 50 years or 100 years, and oil is good enough for my dad, and coal is good enough for my granddad, coal is good enough for me. My job today is related on making coal, and I want to burn coal, and I don't believe that there's global warming. Even though the facts all around me, the melting ice sheets, the melting glaciers say there's global warming, I don't believe it because it doesn't fit my worldview. Evolution says half the people will go one way, half the people will go the other way. In the primitive times with Cro-Magnon men, if half the people guessed wrong and died, the other half survived. It's a good evolutionary tool. The trouble is now, the other half of the people can kill the other half. The one half of the people can kill all of us by making a wrong mistake. So, that's with that. My thing for optimism is not that particular thing. My thing for optimism is these people who take advantage of other people, they tell me stories over and over again. I was lost in this town, my ride abandoned me, and my stuff was stolen. Some family stopped and picked me up, took me to the store, bought me some stuff, took me to the bus station and bought me a ticket. They didn't know who I was, they didn't know I was the kind of people that I'm dealing with. There are nice people still out there, there are nice people who still help people, no matter what. They help people, and sometimes they end up sacrificing themselves. You all heard about the people who stopped and picked up the hitchhiker, who then turned around and killed the person. There is a certain percentage of us who still will help no matter what. To me, that is a positive sign. So, questions, comments? This is an ongoing thing. If you have any suggestions on the solution to crazy people or people who take advantage of people, please let me know. Okay. Okay? We're over here. Offering. We're going to hear the Beer Barrel Polka. A little bit of up-tempo music. If you can share, please share. If you need something, please request it.
Please, thank you.
Closing hymn is number 32. Now thank we all our God. Leave one candle lit for the problems of the world, too many to name, but we'll leave a candle lit for our hopes of resolution, peaceful resolution for all of us. Our extinguishing the chalice is a prayer for a peace vigil, eternal spirit, from whom all things come and to whom all things return. We gather today as religious people from various traditions. We gather as people reaching across our difference, sharing our commitment to compassion and truth. Together, despite the record of violence and distrust in society around us, in this silent moment, let us give thanks for the blessings in our lives, for home and family, for faith and meaningful work. We give thanks. For our ability to gather in this way as people of peace, we give thanks. In this silent moment, we lift up those places in our lives and in our own hearts where burdens reside. May there be peace, may there be grace, may there be support. In this silent moment, let us cry out for the suffering of our world, for refugees fleeing oppression, and children haunted by cruelty, for the wars across the waters far away from us, for the battlegrounds created in nearby cities, for brutality and corruption, violence and distrust. O Spirit of life and love, receive our cry, hear our cry of spirit, and help us to become instruments of thy love. Let us speak in solidarity with the disempowered and join the voices of compassion and reason, or a world filled with cruelty and greed. Let us set aside hate and devote our lives to the ways of peace and justice. Let us, O Spirit, encourage peace to grow in any garden it can find. Let us remember the tragedies of our days and commit to building a better world. Let us be emissaries of justice, ambassadors of compassion, agents of thee, O Spirit, in the name of all that is holy, may it be so. We have donuts and coffee, and there is a couple Starbucks, little instant packs. If you cut the top off, it's pretty good instant coffee, and there's the regular instant back there as well. The postlude is Perfect Autumn Leaves. And I tried to show this last week, and it didn't go. We'll see if it'll go earlier today, but maybe it won't. This is the Arlington Cemetery. And I'll tell you what let's do. We will go to YouTube and pull it up. Because I didn't find a workaround. Or maybe not.
May not be this morning.
Yeah, it may not be this morning. I'm gonna have to record it. Oh, there it is.
One of Arlington National Cemetery's most honored traditions has been suspended after an Army investigation found improper care for the horses that carry the nation's fallen heroes to their final resting place. In tonight's Eye on America, CBS's David Martin shows us the two women that spoke up to save one of the military's oldest ceremonies.
The horse-drawn caisson at Arlington National Cemetery is one of this nation's most solemn and majestic rituals. But back at the stable, watch what happened to a horse named George.
When I touched George's neck, he fell to his knees, which is a very abnormal response in horse. And I've never encountered such a painful horse.
Major Beth Biles is the veterinarian for the horses.
So George basically just buckled under the peg?
He did. It was shocking.
CBS News obtained photos of other horses with scars from wearing ill-fitting harnesses and saddles while pulling a 2,600-pound caisson.
They were all suffering from severe musculoskeletal injuries, neck pain.
They were supposed to work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, but some ended up working 6 weeks straight. Soldiers with limited training didn't recognize the problem, and higher-ups weren't listening.
Educating the chain of command on how to take the appropriate steps was a challenge.
Did you have a hard time getting through?
Initially, yes.
Then 2 horses died, and this Army investigation finally declared conditions unsafe. The Army brought in nurses to give the horses a full year to recover. They were sent to rehab for therapies like hope.
All right, I can't get the picture to come up, and without the picture, it's not gonna do it, so I'll keep working on it. The sight of that horse, all she did was touch his withers right above his neck, and he collapsed to the ground. So they stopped using the horses for a year, and they went in through training and rehabilitation. So the horses are back now, and hopefully they have the veterinarian in charge, and hopefully the officers in charge are taking care of these horses. They're beautiful horses. So I'll get this figured out eventually. All right, that closes our service for today.